In this episode, we'll look at transitions from one clip to another. I've lined up 3 different clips here, and we'll see the first transition is the simplest one, namely just a straight cut like this. All you have to do to achieve that is put one clip next to another one. You can also put one on top of the other like this, in which case it will cut to the new clip and then cut back to the old one. So that could be used for situations, for example, where you're showing people talking and you want to cut to a reaction shot but still have the sound and the continuity of the first person talking. Another thing you can do is just fade out. Like, for example, I will go here to say fade out on that strip, and on this strip I'll right click and say fade in. Now if we watch what happens there, it fades to black. Now this actually fades to black, which you may not necessarily want, but I can move these up and insert a color clip like so. Now if I make that color white, it will fade to white. So that is for the situation where you want a different effect, like for example the start of a dream sequence. Now the trouble with fading like that is that in the middle it's black, or it's actually transparent, but that'll be rendered as black. Now if you actually want to dissolve from one to the other, we could put one on top of the other like this, and then it'll transition like so without a black part in between. Another thing we can do is select both clips and add a transition. So if we do a crossfade, then we're going to get a very similar effect to what we just did by fading one out and fading one in. Instead of doing a crossfade, I'll delete that, select these 2 again, and add a different sort of transition, which is a wipe. Now let's see what that looks like. So we see a vertical wipe, but by selecting the wipe effect, we can change various ways it works. So let's just check that it wipes in the right direction. Yes, it's wiping from the airplane to the wave, so that's right. If we didn't have it correct, we could swap the strips and then it would wipe the other way, which is the wrong direction in this particular case. We can change the angle. Let's say we wiped 90 degrees and then did a wipe. It would wipe from right to left. So we might want to make that minus 90. Then it'll wipe from left to right. We can also increase the blur angle to give it a smoother look. We can do different sorts of wipes, like a double wipe, for example. Goes in both directions. An iris will give you a circular wipe, and a clock gives you the clock effect. And they all look good. But bear in mind that most commercial movies basically stick to a straight cut or maybe a dissolve, so really fancy things aren't really required. For a fancier effect, we can use keyframes to do virtually anything. To demonstrate that, I'll move this picture of the ocean underneath the picture of the airplane, press page down to get to the start of where I want to do my animation, select the airplane strip and press I, which will keyframe the position, the scale and the rotation. Now I'll press page down to move to the end of where this animation is going to happen, and go back 1 frame so I can see what I'm doing, and press G to grab and move the airplane off the side of the view. Then I'll hover my mouse over the viewer window again and press I a second time. And you can see these have become yellow, which means they've also keyframed that new position. So if we press play now, you'll see that the plane disappears off as it follows the keyframe. And we can also we'll go back to the end of that strip where we have the keyframes and type in 90 degrees rotation and press I or click on that diamond until it turns yellow. Now the plane will also rotate as it disappears off the screen. So you can have fancy effects like that by doing keyframing. Keyframing I'll cover in more detail in another episode. Thanks for watching.